Hi, Andrew Kramer here, and today we are going to do some color correction. Now, if you've made it this far, it means you're extremely patient and you worked very hard through all these tutorials. Or you're impatient and you skip directly to this one. But either way, I like your style. Let's go ahead and check out what we have. First of all, let's start with this wide shot. We're going to take it, drag it into the composition area and make a new comp. And as you can see, this shot is a little washed out and could use a little work. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to enhance the sky area here. Now, if I went to color correction, hue, and saturation, I could boost the saturation. But a lot of times that causes problems with chroma sampling, especially when using DV footage, which I am here. So we may not want to boost the saturation. We get a lot of, chroma noise and things like that. So another solution might be to create a new solid. So I'm going to choose a sky blue color, maybe something like that. Make comp size and choose OK. If I can go back to my project, what I'm going to do is take the rectangle mask tool and I'm just going to draw a box around it like that. And I'm going to make it extra long so that when I feather the edges, it won't taper in on the edges. So I'm going to hit F to bring up the feather properties and I'm going to feather this up. And this move the layer up and hold down shift. And now I'm going to change the transfer mode to say color burn or, maybe classic color burn. So you can just cycle through them until you find something that looks nice. And as you can see, that's what we're getting. So if you need to change the color of the sky, just go to the solid settings and, just make some adjustments. And there you go. Now, our ground here is also pretty wore out here. So I'm going to make a new layer. We're going to call this one sky. And if you just hit return, you can type. And I'm going to make a new solid. And this one I'm going to make a brownish, orangish color. Maybe there. Choose OK and OK. Likewise, I'm going to make a mask around just the bottom here. Feather it out. Move it down just a little bit. And we'll change the transfer mode to how about classic color burn. And I'm going to hit T, bring up the opacity, and we're going to lower the opacity down to like 20 to 30. And let's feather it out a little bit more and maybe move the layer back up to there. So as you can see, that just adds a little bit more color and just looks a little bit nicer. Now, first thing before we move on is our sky layer is kind of covering over his shirt and kind of tinting him a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is just create a simple subtraction mask. So I'm going to take the pen tool, and with my sky layer selected, I'm just going to draw a mask roughly around the area of the baseball player and the area where he will probably go when he swings the bat. So there we go. I'm going to hit F for feather, and we're going to make it a little bit, and then we're going to change the mask mode to subtract. So that kind of pulls away. Now we're kind of losing a little bit of the blue here, so let's just go ahead and shrink our mask down and bring some of the points closer to our character here. The main thing here is just the white shirt kind of changing color. So that probably works pretty well. Now, the next thing I want to do is create an overall color adjustment to this. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer, and I'm going to choose Effects, Color Correction, Curves. And what I want to do is just kind of boost the contrast. So I'm going to bring the shadows down just a little bit and just expose it a little bit better. Let's make it this. By the way, these are the shadows down here, and when we bring these down, brings the darker areas dark, and this up here is more of the highlights. And if we increase that, we blow out the highlights, or if we decrease it, we bring those down. Likewise, the mid-range is here in the middle. So now I want to go to the red channel and just kind of bring the red up just a little bit so that the ground kind of gets a little bit more color in it. Also, I'm going to go to the blue channel, and instead of increasing blue, I'm going to subtract blue to kind of give it more of a warmer look, and you can see our grass is a little bit more vivid here. I'm going to go ahead and name this adjustment layer Color Correction, and let's go ahead and duplicate our background layer, put it on top, and as you can see, we've made a very nice improvement. Now, using these layer overlays really helps to give your image an overall density that maybe it was missing from the original footage. Also, you can go into the color correction layer, add a new adjustment, say a levels adjustment, and just clip out some of the whites and just put that before the curves adjustment, just so that you're not blowing out some of the footage that may already be blown out. Also, when you're shooting, you want to be careful not to blow stuff out. A lot of times DV footage has a tendency to blow out, especially in sky areas or areas that aren't exactly what you're purposely exposing for. But it's good to slightly underexpose your images to some degrees, especially when you want to get a lot more color out of it, because once it's white, it's gone. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the second part of this tutorial, and that is this close-up shot. And so I'm going to take this and drag it into the Make New Comp button. And what I want to do is kind of demonstrate a possible problem you may come across. So I'm going to go ahead and just color correct this layer and just bring down the overall brightness. Okay, so say this was a a darker room or something like that, and we want to kind of brighten up the eyes here. So we want to just kind of concentrate on that point. We have very specific color correction though that we want to add to the overall piece. So if we want to just focus on the eyes, we might create a mask on an adjustment layer. But actually, what I'm going to do is first track his eye. So what I'm going to do is change the workspace to motion tracking, and we're going to choose track motion, and I'm going to come in here and just make the point pretty big, or actually make the point about there and make the search area a little bit bigger, since he does move around pretty fast because he's hitting a ball. So I'm going to hit the Analyze Forward button. Okay, so that track looks pretty good, stays on him pretty much the whole time. So I'm not going to apply any of this tracking data. I'm actually just going to close this out and close out my palettes here so I have a little bit more room. And now I'm going to create that new adjustment layer. And we're just going to make a small round elliptical mask around his eyes. And now I'm going to create a null object. So I'm going to choose Layer, New, Null Object, and I'm going to go to the close-up footage that we've just tracked and hit U to bring up the tracking data. Then I'm going to go to the beginning of the comp by hitting Home. I'm going to select the feature center here with all the track points or the keyframes, hit Control-C to copy them, go to the null, hit P, bring up the position parameters, select it, hit Control-V to paste it. So now that my null is going to also follow along with the layer. Now if I go back to my adjustment layer, I can move it into place, and we want this to kind of just be over mainly the eye area. And I'm going to feather the mask by bringing up the feather, hitting F, and feather it maybe about 50 pixels. And then I'm going to set the parent to link to this null object. And what that's going to do is just make both of these layers all link together. Here, let's see here. Okay. The trick is adding some color correction to this adjustment layer. So if I choose Effects, Color Correction, say Levels, I can, let me just bring that back. I can increase the brightness, for example. Give it a little bit contrast. And, take it a little bit more beyond what I may do, because I have that extra control of just limiting my effect to this adjustment layer. So if I were to darken this layer even more, you can see that I'm still brightening up that one area, which makes this a very powerful technique. Now, likewise, say if my eyes were out of focus, I could choose Effects, Blur and Sharpen, Unsharp Mask, and just slightly increase it. Now, you notice my noise also gets sharpened, so I want to increase the threshold amount to about 5, and maybe the amount of the sharpness to, say, 75. So it kind of sharpens the eyes up, maybe about 2 for the radius, and make that 3. So that kind of sharpens the eyes up, but we're not sharpening the whole image and creating kind of a fake look to the overall piece. Now, we want to be careful not to do this too much because we don't want to make it look like he's in one of those fancy tanning beds with the eye goggles on. But you might run into situations where you really don't have the control over the image because it's already so dark. And if we go ahead and just shrink this mask down to just the eye region, we can actually kind of get away from that suntan look and, really get the most out of this effect. So if I turn this layer on and off, you can actually see it's making quite a difference, and your eyes really focus on his eyes as he's hitting this ball. And the good thing is the tracker is going to keep this layer to follow it. Let's go ahead and preview this. Now, you may run across some footage that is already dark and you won't necessarily be darkening it yourself, but I just wanted to darken the layer just to kind of show you the purpose of maybe why you would want to just work in just a specific region of the image without, changing the overall image. Anyway, I hope this tutorial has been useful, and I hope this whole tutorial DVD has been useful. I really appreciate you taking the time to get into this, and I hope you have learned at least 2 things. Thanks again for watching. I'm Andrew Kramer, and I will talk to you next time.